Hello, welcome back, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain a drama, fantasy, sci-fi film, The Midnight Sky. Watch out and take care. While everyone else on the island is evacuated, Augustine, an elderly man with a terminal illness, is left behind at an observatory on Earth to keep track on astronauts' efforts to find another planet capable of supporting human existence. He lives alone in the observatory, sleeping, drinking, and eating alone. He administers blood transfusions to himself and takes medication throughout the day. Decades before, Augustine was lecturing to hundreds of people about planets in the universe that could potentially host life, such as K23. A woman approaches him to flirt with him at the after-party. They share a few beers and she challenges him about the legitimacy of the book he recently released about K23. Augustine awakens in the current day and begins browsing the computer to check whether missions are still operational. The majority of them are dormant, but one catches his attention. Ether appears to be the last expedition left. As Augustine goes over the crew images, he comes upon a picture of a woman he recognizes and decides to contact her. Sully, the woman in the photo, is in charge of communication for a 5-person team on Ether. She dreams about being stranded on K23. She's pregnant and gets along well with the rest of the crew, particularly Captain Aid, the father of her child. When Sully arrives in her operating room, she receives an unusual signal that she cannot identify and alerts the rest of the crew. Back on Earth, Augustine goes about his business until the observatory's fire alarm goes off. He follows it back to the kitchen, extinguishes it, and drops exhausted on the floor. From his new vantage position, he notices a young girl crouching beneath the wash basin. He is appalled that she has been abandoned. Augustine anxiously tries to call someone on the radio to report the missing girl, but he is unable to reach anyone. Augustine discovers the little girl sleeping in one of the storage lockers and tries to explain to her that he will be unable to care for her, but she appears unable to talk. Augustine cooks the little girl dinner, and afterwards she draws him a picture of a flower, an iris, which he realizes is her name. Augustine attempts again but is still unable to communicate with Ether. Iris tries to sleep with him in his room, but Augustine moves her to a nearby room. She returns to Augustine's room in the middle of the night, constructs a small nest in the corner, and sleeps on the floor. Ether has also been having communication issues. They haven't been able to communicate with any other ships or anyone on Earth. They have returned from their trip on K23 with the discovery that the planet is capable of supporting human existence. Iris observes Augustine's blood infusions and sits in the chair next to his to gaze up through the observatory's roof at the stars above them. Decades before, a young Augustine is working in his study when the same woman from the party chastises him for not returning her phone calls. She is dissatisfied with his explanation of being at work and lies to him about calling to inform him that she is not pregnant after all. She informs him that he is squandering his life and ignoring the people who care about him because he is so preoccupied with his profession. When Augustine goes outside to check on the antenna that controls his communications, he discovers scores of fallen, dying birds in the snow. He recognizes this as an indication that the foul air has already arrived at the observatory, far sooner than expected. He realizes that the antenna at the observatory isn't strong enough to touch Ether, but the one at Lake Hazen, which was originally a meteorological station, is. He informs Iris that they must travel to Lake Hazen not simply to escape the impending poor air, but also as their sole hope of contacting Ether before it's too late. Augustine dresses himself in several layers of thick gear and dresses Iris in the same, presenting her with goggles and a breathing device that he warns her not to remove for any reason. They transfer the most important items from the observatory onto a jet ski. They take off from the observatory and go towards Lake Hazen through the frozen tundra. On Ether, the crew spends their time interacting with holograms of their loved ones or playing three-dimensional video games and playing cards with one another. An alarm sounds, breaking the silence and informing the crew that their ship has veered off course. Using the signal from K23, they are able to identify their exact location and a route back to Earth. But their new route will take them through uncharted area. Augustine and Iris spend the night in a snow tent. The next day, while traveling, they come across the remnants of a crashed airliner. When Augustine notices a dead youngster in one of the chairs outdoors, he urges Iris to remain where she is while he investigates the rest of the wreckage. He mostly finds rubble inside, but as he begins to make his way back out, a dying guy grabs his foot. The man is severely injured and begs Augustine to help him. Iris's curiosity gets the best of her and she peeks at the body outside. She is surprised and attempts to join Augustine in the remainder of the plane, but he pushes her back outside. Augustine shoots the man on the plane as he had instructed, putting him end of his agony. Augustine gets a memory of watching the woman from the party leave him, taking their daughter, whom he had never met, on ether. Maya performs an ultrasound on Sully's pregnant belly and informs her that she will be carrying a girl. She alerts the rest of the group, and they instantly begin making up names. Iris notices a bunker in the distance while riding on the jet ski, so they go to it. Augustine inspects it and determines it will be an excellent place to spend the night. He arranges their gear and leaves the jet ski outside. Augustine notices Iris drawing a portrait of a woman and claims to recognize her. He tells Iris all the good things he remembers about her, and for the first time, Iris speaks out, asking him if he loved her. The bunker begins to flood that night as it descends beneath the melting ice. Augustine pulls Iris from the bunker and tells her to flee while he gathers as many of their belongings as can. He exits the bunker barely in time and attempts to flee on a jet ski, but it sinks beneath the ice. He tries to swim after it, but it sinks too quickly and he nearly drowns. He climbs out of the ice and warms up with Iris. They will have to continue their journey to Lake Hazen on foot and with no supplies. Augustine later feeds Iris the last of their supper. She appears concerned, but he assures her that there will be plenty of food at Lake Hazen. They go through a snowfall, barely able to see 2 feet in front of them. Augustine spots wolves circling them through the snow and shoots at them with his shotgun. He loses track of Iris in the midst of the turmoil, and he screams for her but she doesn't respond. He gives up after a period of seeking and lies down in the snow. He has a glimpse of the woman from the party standing over him and realizes it's Iris. He cradles her in his arms, relieved to have found her. They arrived at Lake Hazen the next day and immediately went to work trying to contact Ether. Sully recognizes Augustine's signal and responds. Sully informs him that they have been unable to contact NASA and inquires as to what has happened to Earth. Their signal becomes distorted as he attempts to explain, and Sully is unable to comprehend him. She loses the signal, and an alert sounds. Ether is now in an undiscovered portion of their journey, and the spacecraft is being bombarded with asteroids. The ship is severely damaged, and its communication equipment is completely wrecked. The crew examines the ship's damage and decides that they will have to rebuild some of their communication systems and travel outside to repair it. Maya, Sully, and Aid will take the trek, which will be Maya's first time leaving the spacecraft while in space. Maya is terrified and vomits multiple times before they go outside. Everything appears to be fine once outside the ship. They complete the necessary modifications to the communication system and begin their return inside. The ship is once again attacked by asteroids before they reach their destination. When they have subsided, the crew checks to make sure everyone is safe. Maya is shaken but unharmed, but when she returns inside, she discovers droplets of blood floating up from her suit and into her helmet. Aid and Sully get her back into the ship, and Mitchell arrives with the medkit. When they remove Maya's helmet, a big amount of blood floats out of her suit and into the ship. Maya begins to worry, claiming that there is too much blood, and Aid and Mitchell work to patch her wounds while Sully tries to calm her down. Despite their best attempts, the crew is unable to close the wound caused by asteroids hitting the ship, and Maya dies. The crew mourns their loss, but are quickly diverted when they see Earth for the first time. They are shocked to realize that it appears to be lifeless and covered in radiation. Ether contacts Augustine again, and he informs him that they will not be able to return to Earth. He informs them that he is the sole survivor and that everyone else has been evacuated. He informs them that there are no more ongoing operations and that they are the only ones remaining. The crew is horrified that they will not be able to return home and that their only way out of the ship is to turn around and return to K-23. Tom states unequivocally that he will not return to K-23 and that he must discover what happened to his family. He asks Aid for permission to return to Earth in one of the re-entry pods to look for his wife and children, and Aid agrees. Mitchell tells Tom about his daughter, who died when she was 4 years old, and how she would have been the same age as Maya if she were still living. Mitchell asks Tom if he can accompany him back to Earth to retrieve Maya's body, and Tom agrees. Mitchell and Tom bid their goodbyes to Sully and Aid before returning to Earth in the re-entry pod. Sully contacts Augustine to inform him of what has happened with the crew and that they intend to return to K-23. Sully tells Augustine that she has always admired his work and is disappointed that she will never meet him. He inquires about her name, and she replies, Iris. Augustine requests that she describe. K-23 approaches him, and he decides not to tell her that he is her father, whom she has never met. Augustine's vision of the little child Iris was a hallucination all along. Ether enters a communication blackout zone, and the signal is lost. Aid and Sully are the final survivors, and they return to K-23 in the hopes of rebuilding the society. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.